Welcome to the Page of Crime. Here on this channel we go over true crime events from all over the world. Before we get into this video, I would first like to send a big thanks to all my subscribers and all those that are liking the content, sharing and leaving comments. I really do appreciate it, thank you. Now without delay, let's get into this video. In the perplexing world of mixed martial arts, few names spark intrigue quite like Lee Muray, a man who, at the height of his MMA career, was dubbed the scariest ever UFC fighter, only to later become notorious as the mastermind behind one of UK's largest cash heists. Today he languishes in a Moroccan prison. Lee Brahim Lamrani Muray was born September 12, 1977, in St Nicholas Hospital, in Plumstead, southeast London. He was the firstborn to an English mother, Barbara Muray, a hairdresser turned telephone switchboard operator, and father Brahim Lamrani from the southern Moroccan city of Sidi Ifni, who worked as a kitchen hand. The two met when on holiday in Gran Canaria, an island in Spain. His father, absent for the first 7 years of his life, as his father continued to live and work in the Canary Islands. He would eventually reunite with the family in 1984. He also married Barbara in 1984, and in 1985 she gave birth to Lee's only sibling, Arkia. Lee's childhood years were spent at Foxfield Primary School and lived at 11 Buttmarsh Close in Woolwich. A lively boy, Lee found companionship in the Buttmarsh Boys, a group of friends from the local estate. Lee and his friends often clashed with boys from neighbouring estates. His transition to Eaglesfield Boys' School marked a significant point in Lee's life. It was here he met Paul Allen, who would become his closest confidant and accomplice in the years to come. Lee's father was a man of fiery temperament, a violent drunk who demanded respect and obedience. Their relationship was strained, reaching a boiling point one evening when Lee retaliated and knocked his father out. The friction between them escalated to such an extent his father felt living together would result in an unaliving, so he moved out. Subsequently, Lee's behavior spiraled out of control, becoming unmanageable, leading him to being expelled and sent to Woolwich Polytechnic School. He had built up quite a reputation from fighting, and his involvement in crime led many to steer clear of him, in and out of school. By this point, Lee was hardly home. He would just move from friend's house to friend's house. He had also joined a gang on the Barnfield estate. Here, crime escalated, with theft and drug dealing becoming the norm. Alongside Paul Allen, Mark Epstein and others, Lee began to carve out a space for himself in the drug trade. Lee and his gang knew to get bigger, they would have to go to war with the local dealers that owned that turf. Muray and his guys would go to war over turf and win, seizing control of those drug areas. Some of his friends around at that time said he was off the rails from young. Violence is what he knew. He used that same approach to sell drugs. He did this so people didn't cross him. Lee's first conviction came as a minor for possession of cocaine and marijuana. He served time at Feltham Young Offenders Institution and was labelled a notorious London drug dealer at the Old Bailey, with a network of drug runners under his command. Upon his release, Lee and Allen began hitting the gym, bulking up while continuing to expand their criminal empire. The police were a constant presence because they suspected Lee was a drug dealer. They attempted to place an informer in his gang, but could not gain enough evidence to prosecute Muray. Lee always managed to stay one step ahead. Muray enjoyed mocking the police on the streets. On December 24, 1998, Lee became a father. Siobhan Rowlings, his girlfriend, gave birth to their first child, Lily Jane. During this period he began training in wrestling at Shoot Fighters in White City, and boxing at Peacock's Boxing Gym in Canning Town, owned by the Bowers brothers, Martin and Tony and Paul. It was a move that made sense for him, because by this time he had been involved in so much fistfights and brawls, and figured, why not get paid for it? Muray started his MMA career on the 5th of December 1999 at the Millennium Brawl event at Hemel Hempstead Pavilion, where he won over Rob Hudson by a first-round knockout, and gained the nickname Lightning. He then fought Alex Reed, a man known for his marriage to model Katie Price. This bout ended in a disqualification for Muray due to turning his back on Reed. This decision would spark a riot in the ring that saw Reed hit over the head with a chair. On the 11th of March, the night before he was set to fight Mike Tomlinson, Lee was watching the Prince Nassim Hamed versus Vianney Bungu fight at a pub. Two men stood in front of Muray and one accused him of stealing his seat and demanded he moved. Lee would hit the one talking and knock him out. His friend would try to help, only to end up laying next to his friend. A bartender would get involved trying to stop it, but would end up getting knees to the face until he collapsed. Lee would end up injuring his left hand to the point he couldn't close it. On the 12th of March 2000, the following day after the pub fight, Muray still took on Mike Tomlinson under the banner of Ring of Truth. Muray won the fight via a Kimura submission in the first round. After the fight, he went to the hospital and got his hand plastered up, as it was broke in 2 places. In the middle of that year, he packed his bag, flew to the United States, and made his way to Bettendorf, Iowa. Pat Miletic, a former junior college wrestler and 5-time UFC champion, had opened an MMA training gym. 95% are back on the interstate, bloodied and bruised, thinking about their life goals. Muray was one of the few who stuck it out, impressing Robbie Lawler with his powerful punches. Robbie Lawler, a UFC legend, a top MMA fighter who sparred frequently with Muray, said, "Man, he would hit the mitts, pop, 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 and you would stop your workout and look over because it sounded like gunfire." Murray's next challenge was the Extreme Challenge 34, a 4-man MMA tournament in rural Wisconsin, USA on the 17th of June. He won his first fight against Chris Albandia by submission after getting his opponent in an ankle lock. His second opponent of the tournament was Canadian Joe Dirksen. Muray lost this fight. He got caught in a submission tapping out to an armbar. Once his training budget finished, he would return to the UK and continue to train and fight. He faced Danny Rushton in a fight that ended in no contest due to Rushton's collapsing from exhaustion. On the 24th of November that same year, he married his girlfriend Siobhan Rowlings. In 2001, he fought Chris Bacon, which ended a draw, and Gary Warren, who he beat by KO. And in 2002, he would fight Kama Bumna, who he finished via an armbar, and Amir Ranavadi, who he KO'd. In July 2002, the UFC 38 event had touched down in London, gracing the Royal Albert Hall with its presence for the first time ever. Over 3,000 spectators watched as Matt Hughes took on Carlos Newton. However, the echoes of the night's battles did not end with the official fights. At an after-party, a brawl ignited outside a London nightclub after one of Ortiz's friends jumped on the back of Pat Miletic, attempted a playful rear-naked choke. Not realizing it was playful, Muray and his friends attacked the fighter with Allen knocking him out, trying to defend Miletic. This would cause a mass brawl. Eventually, one of Ortiz's friends got knocked out. Muray would start taunting Tito, who was actually the UFC light heavyweight at the time, pointing at his friend on the floor. This would cause Tito to start throwing punches at Muray. He would manage to avoid them and hit him with a 4-piece combo, briefly knocking him out, sending him to his hands and knees, and when he fell, he would follow up with kicks to his face. By this point, Murray's friends were pulling him off. The arrival of the police was the cue for Muray and his group to make a swift exit. UFC legend Chuck Liddell, who was on the side of Tito Ortiz, claims he knocked out around 5 people in that brawl, but states it may have been higher. Despite the numerous eyewitness accounts, Ortiz denied getting knocked out, but multiple were present at the time that confirmed it happened, such as Matt Hughes, Bruce Buffer, Mark Epstein, and Alexis Dimitriades. Alex would mention this incident in an interview with Sunsport, stating, "He was a superstar. He's an absolute superstar. I saw him beat Tito Ortiz in the streets. Yeah, I've seen it. The stuff I've seen him do. He's an absolute legend. A very, very tough human being. A very tough man in any situation." Ortiz stated that he believes the stories were fabricated by everyone involved to make Muray a feared fighter. He said, "It's not true at all. One of my buddies got beat up and was getting stomped on the concrete outside, and I came to his rescue. Me, Chuck Liddell, and Damien started to fight, and one of the guys sucker punched my friend, Damien. My friend Bo dropped him on the floor, and the cab ran over his arm, and Lee Muray was in there. Lee Muray took a swing at me, missed. I took a swing at him, clinched him, kneed him. He broke away. He started running away. I started chasing him, and he turned around and planted his feet. I go to stop and slide right into him. He clips me, and I drop and I popped right back up, and the cops came, broke everybody apart." The following year, in July 2003, Muray took on Jose Landy Yons at Extreme Force 1 Genesis in London. Despite a challenging start, Muray managed to knock out Jose with a right hand, further establishing his dominance in the MMA world. Lee Muray was cementing his status as one of the UK's hottest prospects in MMA. He would receive a contract from the UFC. Muray made his UFC debut in 2004 at UFC 46, making a dramatic entrance in a prison uniform and a mask reminiscent of Anthony Hopkins's Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. He faced veteran Jorge Rivera and triumphed within 2 minutes of the first round with a triangle armbar. His debut performance put the world on notice of his potential. Muray proved himself to be more than just a one-dimensional fighter. He used his post-fight interview to call out Tito Ortiz, the UFC light heavyweight champion. On March 27, 2003, the Bowers brothers, proprietors of the infamous Peacock's boxing gym, meticulously planned and executed a heist that would go down in history. A staggering sum of £1.1 million was stolen from Gatwick Airport. Disguised as security guards, using a Brinks-Mat van, the brothers executed the heist. They would get away, however their freedom was short-lived as they were arrested and charged. Their faces soon graced the front pages of newspapers. The brothers confessed to their crimes. They admitted to conspiracy to steal. Tony would receive 12.5 years. Martin and Paul would both receive 6 years. Other accomplices were also arrested and charged. Muray was heading to a family gathering on Christmas. His wife Siobhan, heavily pregnant, and their 6-year-old daughter Lily were by his side. As they were driving, they would go on to overtake a slow-moving vehicle. On overtaking the driver, this would trigger the other driver, now in a fit of rage, to speed up, cutting off Muray and hitting the front of his car. This would cause Muray to chase the driver. The incident escalated to a violent confrontation. Muray would get out his car and go for the driver. He managed to pull the driver's keys out the ignition, but in the process he had a chunk bitten out of his arm. This would lead Muray to start punching the driver, pulling him out his car. Within seconds, the driver was bloody and unconscious with a broken cheekbone. Muray was charged with assault. The incident pretty much slowed his thriving MMA career, as he could no longer travel to America, the country that held the UFC. The charges were later dropped when it was revealed that the man Muray had assaulted had a history of road rage incidents and had previously been jailed for his role in another road rage incident, but for some reason still remained barred from the USA restriction that led him to sign with Cage Rage. He was set to face Patrick Cote at UFC 52, but was replaced by someone that had beat him, Joe Dorkson. In the summer of 2004, Muray stepped into the cage with UFC legend Anderson Silva, one of the world's best pound-for-pound fighters, at Cage Rage 8 for the vacant middleweight title. During the press conference, Muray would tell Silva, "I'm going to do to you what I did to your friend Pelé." He then grabbed a pair of Brazilian fighting shorts, ripped off the flag patch, and threw it at Silva. The fight was fierce, with both fighters delivering and withstanding severe punishment. Yet, it was Silva who emerged victorious, winning by unanimous decision. As the two shook hands, Silva pushed a gift into Murray's palm. It was the patch of the Brazilian flag. He was also arrested and questioned on 2 occasions about the unaliving of Sabina Rizvi, a 25-year-old woman shot dead in a row over a car in Bexley Heath in March 2003. Another man, Paul Asbury, was later sentenced to life for the unaliving, but police believe others were involved and confirmed Muray had been a suspect. In the middle of September 2005, Muray found himself in another violent altercation outside a nightclub in London's posh Mayfair. He was stabbed and had a nipple sliced off. A significant turning point in Murray's life was a near-death experience, a week or 2 after his previous stabbing. Muray got into a 15-man brawl at around 3:15 a.m. after a night out at the Funky Buddha nightclub in London Mayfair, a birthday party of Lauren Pope, most commonly known from the show The Only Way is Essex, and his friend Terry Coulter. After a group attacked his friend outside the nightclub, he would jump in to defend his friend, and during the fight someone would brandish a knife and stab Muray in the head. This would only enrage Muray, and he would continue to fight the armed fighter. During the scuffle, Muray would be stabbed multiple times in the chest, with one piercing his heart. Blood would start spurting from his chest until he collapsed. The attack was so vicious that it resulted in an open-heart surgery to save his life. He also suffered a punctured lung and a severed artery, and had to be resuscitated 4 times during the life-saving operation, and would also need 30 pints of blood. No one was ever charged for that attack. He was training 5 weeks later after the stabbing, as he was scheduled to fight for the Cage Rage Championship after he recovered. Dana White, the president of the UFC, said, "I actually ran into Lee Muray right after he got stabbed. He got stabbed everywhere and they were still fresh. Days after he got stabbed, he's walking around the event with all the stitches still in him. Lee Muray is one of the most legit gangsters of all time, he really is." Realizing his MMA career was over, he turned to a full-time life of crime. In February 2006, accompanied by a group of masked men, Muray found himself leading one of the most high-profile robberies in UK history. He and his accomplices stole a staggering £53 million from the Securitas depot on Vale Road in Tunbridge, Kent. Muray, Allen and Kienda Patterson, who police believe to be Kane, all from southeast London, teamed up with several men from Kent, including cage fighter Leah Rusha, his Albanian-born friend Jetmir Bukpapa, and car dealer Stuart Royal. Bukpapa had a friend, Ermir Hisanaj, who worked at the Securitas depot and provided key inside information that helped Murray's plan come to fruition. He would be working while wearing a small video camera hidden in his belt buckle. He would be their inside man. Muray asked his friend Michael Dimitris if he could borrow an employee, makeup artist Michelle Hogg, for a makeup job. The robbery, which was a meticulously planned operation, began on the evening of February 21, 2006, around 6 p.m., when a Securitas depot manager, Colin Dixon, aged 52, left work and would start his journey home in his Nissan sedan, but he was pulled over by men that he believed were policemen in an unmarked car on the A249. The car had flashing blue lights, and two men wearing a police uniform, alleged to be Muray and Rusha, flashing a badge, ordered him into the back of their car. Dixon was handcuffed, was then blindfolded and transferred to a van, then taken to a remote farm in Western Kent. At the same time, further members of the gang kidnapped Dixon's family, his wife Lynn and his 8-year-old son, at their home in Herne Bay, after answering the door to another man dressed as a police officer. He explained that her husband had been in a serious traffic accident. They said that Lynn and the couple's child needed to accompany them to the hospital. The family would then be moved to Elderden Farm, where Dixon was also being held by the same group of criminals who threatened, "You'll get a hole in you. If you cooperate, no one will get hurt." The hostages were then loaded into a large white Renault truck and taken to the Securitas depot, arriving a bit past midnight. Using Dixon as their way in, once inside, the fake cop overpowers the security guard and buzzes in the rest of the robbers, the criminals brandishing weapons. AK-47s, shotguns, Scorpion machine pistols and handguns entered the facility and added members of the depot's staff to their growing list of hostages. A total of 14 employees were held hostage. The gunman threatened to kill staff in the depot if they did not cooperate. Dixon, fearing for his family, told the 14 staffers working, "They've got my family," and instructed them not to touch the alarms. One of the robbers, dubbed Stopwatch by detectives believed to be Muray, was seen on CCTV bossing the gang around and timing their every move. With Stopwatch's guidance, the gang gained access to the depot's vault. They left the hostages locked in cash cages and proceeded to load £53,116,760 in cash into their truck. They could have made off with more, but the lorry couldn't fit another penny and was forced to leave behind a further £153 million. The robbers saw this as the perfect heist: no shots fired, no one hurt, no alarms, and a clean getaway. They returned to the farm to divide the spoils. At around 3 in the morning, Dixon's child managed to escape from a metal cage and summon the police. The ex-UFC star, who has Moroccan citizenship through his father, fled to Morocco along with Paul Allen after the raid, believing they could evade prosecution due to Morocco's lack of a formal extradition agreement with Great Britain, leaving his wife and 2 children behind. It is believed the two drove to Dover, got a ferry to France, then to Amsterdam, then on to Spain, where he and Allen crossed the Strait of Gibraltar by ferry, finding sanctuary in Morocco. Within 48 hours of the heist, police made their first arrest. A tip led them to Michelle Hogg, a makeup artist and the daughter of a policeman. Police found a quantity of latex they suspected Hogg had used to make prosthetic disguises for the robbers. Hogg gave a statement saying she was too scared to identify the thieves. That same day, the police also discovered the van used in the kidnapping. Some gang members boasted to friends about the heist, and they gave this information to the police. Acting on the tip, a second van used in the robbery was found burnt out. When they looked inside, they found guns, ski masks, bandanas, and £1.3 million in cash. As the investigation continued, the police's net grew wider. They raided the homes of Murray's associate Leah Rusha and Rusha's friend Jetmir Bukpapa. In Rusha's bedroom, they found plans of the Securitas depot and a whopping £8.6 million in cash hidden in a nearby garage. Within 10 days of the heist, 5 people had been charged, marking a significant step in one of the most notorious cases in British criminal history. Allen and Muray stayed with 2 other friends in a villa in Suisi, Rabat. They indulged in flamboyant displays of wealth, Muray reportedly spent £667,200 on a concrete manor that included marble floors and a fully equipped gym and a giant mural above the hot tub, showing his victory in his one and only UFC fight, purchased expensive cars, drugs and jewelry, and spent thousands of pounds on plastic surgery for their partners who were back in the UK. Months into their extravagant life on the run, their luck ran out. Muray and Allen were caught on June 25, 2006, at a shopping centre in Rabat, along with Armitage and Bassar, in a joint operation conducted by Moroccan and British police. After a physical struggle, the four men were arrested. The authorities found cocaine and marijuana at Muray's residence after a search. All four men were charged with drug possession and violent resistance to police. By February 2007, they were found guilty. Sentences ranged from 4 to 8 months in prison. Armitage and Bassar were released soon after and returned to the UK. Allen was extradited back to the UK and held in prison to await trial for his part in the heist. Muray, however, the Moroccan authorities refused to extradite due to his Moroccan heritage. Even though the Moroccan authorities refused to extradite him, they cooperated with Kent police to ensure he faced justice for his crimes back in the UK and ensured he will serve time for this crime he has committed. The Moroccan government did actually try to swap Muray with Mohamed Karbouzi, a wanted man living in London, and was wanted for questioning in the 2003 Casablanca bombing, but the British government reportedly declined the exchange. He would be held in Sale prison. Abdellah Ben Lamhidi Aisawi Muray's lawyer stated, "It's tough for him. He states that he's innocent. He has not participated in this robbery, claiming the fighter made his money from cage fights and didn't need to resort to robbery." In the fall of 2006, Hogg went QE, Queen's Evidence, and testified against her co-conspirators in exchange for her freedom. She explained how she created prosthetics masks so the gang members who posed as police officers couldn't be accurately identified. 5 men, Leah Rusha, aged 37, of Lambasart Close, Southborough, Kent, Jetmir Bupapa, aged 28, Stuart Royal, Roger Coutts, were convicted of kidnap, robbery and firearms charges on January 2008, and would all have to serve a minimum term of 15 years each. Emir Heisenaj, 28, an Albanian immigrant who secretly filmed the depot using a miniature camera hidden in his belt buckle, was given 20 years. Muray could not be named because the police and Crown Prosecution Service still hoped to extradite him to stand trial. The police would manage to recover £21 million of the stolen cash, but £32 million remained unaccounted for. Some of his accomplices remain at large. Over 200 witnesses came forward. Nigel Pilkington of the Crown Prosecution Service told reporters, and with more than half the loot still unaccounted for, he vowed to continue to pursue the case. "This is not the end of the matter for these criminals," he said. "We intend to seize their ill-gotten gains, wherever they may be." Rusha, a kickboxer and former roofer, of Lambasart Close, Southborough, Kent, and Bukapa, of Hadlow Road, Tunbridge, would appeal their sentence. 3 judges said the offence for which they were convicted was notorious. The judges dismissed an appeal against sentence by Rusha. However, they allowed a challenge by Bupapa in part by quashing his indeterminate 15-year sentence, but replaced it with a determinate sentence of 30 years imprisonment. Paul was also trialled for his part in the robbery, but claimed he knew nothing about the robbery, and jurors were unable to reach a verdict after a first trial at the Old Bailey. Michael Dimitris was also arrested and charged, but was later acquitted of all charges, saying he was unaware of what Muray had planned. Joel Benathan QC for Mr. Dimitris stated, "Lee Muray was perfectly happy to get people involved and implicated, and then waltz off to Morocco with £30 million, not worrying about people he had got mixed up, people like Michael Dimitris." Dixon would testify that the fear and suspense escalated when the robbers, disguised in uniforms, revealed their true intentions with a chilling threat. "You will have guessed we are not policemen. Don't do anything silly and you won't get hurt." The situation grew even more intense when Dixon tried to adjust his handcuffs, only to be met with a brandished pistol and a menacing warning. "We're not fucking about." Paul Allen, one of the key figures, found himself in the dock not once but twice. Allen pleaded guilty to conspiracy, claiming he was not at the depot on the day of the robbery, or part of the gang who kidnapped the manager and his family. He was soon convicted. His plea of guilty to conspiracy to commit robbery, conspiracy to kidnap, and conspiracy to possess a firearm led to an 18-year sentence in October 2009 at Woolwich Crown Court. The judge, David Penry Davey, was unequivocal in his comments, stating that Allen had played an active part in the ruthlessly executed robbery. He described the act as organized banditry for uniquely high stakes. Allen was also ordered to pay back a substantial sum, £1.2 million of the £1.9 million criminal benefit he gained from his part in the heist on a Securitas depot in 2006. He was given a deadline of July 2010 and was told he would face additional prison time if he failed to meet the deadline. He would pay back £420. A judge in a closed court agreed with prosecutors that he should not have to pay that money back. After the trial, the authorities lifted the reporting restrictions, revealing Lee Murray's name to the public. As for Hogg, the makeup artist, and the Dixons, they were ushered into witness protection after hearing whispers of a £7 million bounty on their heads. Roger Coutts, later jailed for at least 15 years for his part in the robbery, he told the Old Bailey, "Lee Murray has security firms, he runs doormen, he has flash cars, and he is a well-known drug dealer, everyone knows it, he's a gangster." In 2008, Murray would divorce his wife Rowlings. In June 2009, Lee was suspected of attempting an escape, but was unsuccessful. His tool of choice being a saw he had hidden in a plate of biscuits, it was alleged he was going to try and use to saw through the bars of his cell and escape. However, it was a seemingly innocuous phone call that truly tipped the scales. In the same year of 2009, Lee had a conversation with a martial arts magazine on a prohibited mobile phone, in which he revealed he had access to drugs, laptops, and all types of contraband in the jail, and that the guards turned a blind eye to it all. This led to a search of his cell, unearthing 5 kilos of drugs and a laptop with internet access. His punishment? Solitary confinement. In June 2010, Lee Murray was sentenced to 10 years in a Moroccan court, not including time served. A sentence that in Morocco means serving the full 10 years. No parole, no early release, just a decade of hard time. Murray himself provided the key evidence that would seal his fate. In a moment of recklessness, he lost control of his yellow Ferrari, fleeing the scene and leaving behind an unwitting time bomb, his mobile phone. By some bizarre stroke of misfortune, he had accidentally pressed the record button during a conversation about the robbery with fellow plotter, Leah Rusha. This recording would be used against him in court. Detective Superintendent Mick Judge said the Kent force had worked with the Moroccan authorities to ensure Murray was prosecuted. The authorities were relentless in their pursuit of justice. Mick Judge also expressed satisfaction that Murray would now face a significant prison sentence for his part in the Tonbridge robbery. However, Murray's solicitor, Abdallah Ben Lanhidi, argued the verdict was overly harsh and vowed to appeal. Murray had already been in jail for 4 years, meaning he had another 6 years to serve. On the 30th of November 2010, Murray did appeal his sentence. But the tables turned dramatically when prosecutors argued that his original sentence was too lenient had their appeal upheld. Murray was handed an additional 15 years behind bars, bringing his sentence up from 10 years to a staggering 25 years. The absence of legal counsel during the appeal didn't help him either. His release date was set for 2035. Over 30 people had been arrested in conjunction with the investigation. Murray, speaking from prison, denied being the mastermind behind the robbery, stating, "I didn't have control over it, and it was never my idea. I weren't the one who knew where the depot manager lived. I weren't the one who knew what car he drove. I wasn't the one who had someone who worked on the inside." In 2012, Murray was moved to a high-security unit in Kenitra prison and stripped of prison luxuries because he had fathered a child behind bars. Moroccan jails unofficially allow conjugal visits between well-behaved prisoners and their wives, but Murray had flouted these rules, sleeping with a woman visitor who was not his wife. Prison chiefs were furious after learning he slept with a woman visitor who was not his wife. Murray, who was 32 at the time, was moved to a tougher unit of Kenitra prison near Rabat, and his mobile phone, television and DVDs were confiscated. He was also denied any visitor rights for the foreseeable future. Meanwhile, out in the world, Allen was released from prison in 2016. He was soon photographed driving a luxury Mercedes convertible worth £40,000 and wearing a Rolex with an estimated value of £45,000. Does Conor McGregor truly hold the torch for the greatest impact on MMA? In an eye-opening interview in 2018 with Bloody Elbow with Lee Murray, while behind bars, shared his thoughts on this very subject. Bloody elbow. What have you made of Conor McGregor's impact on MMA? According to Muray, McGregor has undoubtedly made a significant contribution to the sport's growth. However, he doesn't believe McGregor has done more than he would have done, given the opportunity. Muray admired McGregor's ambition to win multiple belts, a goal he himself harbored. Yet he found McGregor's showmanship, like his ostentatious white mink coat, looking like EastEnders character Pat Butcher, and the outlandish tattoos, to be far from his own envisioned image of a champion. Lee would say you wouldn't catch me with Tony the Tiger and King Kong tattooed on my chest either. Muray boldly claimed that McGregor's persona is but a shadow of what he could have been as a champion. According to him, McGregor's confidence, courage, skills, and power could never measure up to his own. He stated, "He could never be as confident as me, have balls the size of mine. He can pretend to be me, but you will never see another me. Period." Bloody Elbow would then ask, if you and Conor McGregor coexisted in the UFC, do you think you'd be the one fighter he'd refrain from trash-talking? Lee would say, he would choose his words very carefully when speaking to me, and wouldn't cross the line like he has done with all his other opponents. He knows I'm a different breed of animal compared to the little pipsqueaks he has been beating on. He scoffed at the idea of Eddie Alvarez. Where the F.K. did Dana White find that little turd? Was he in the storeroom stacking shelves? He is not fit to clean my car on a Sunday morning, let alone get in the octagon to defend a UFC world title. The thing I have not been able to get my head around is how he even won that belt in the first place. He must have won it a raffle. Lee would go on to say, there is no one in the UFC as fearless or ruthless as me. I go to limits others wouldn't dream of. Where they end, I'm just beginning. People know my words come directly from my heart, and I'm a man to be taken seriously. I am the real Notorious. There is no one in MMA more notorious than me. I heard there was an article online titled, The Real Notorious One before Conor McGregor. And it's about me. Everyone who knows me knows I am the real Notorious. Besides, what is he notorious for? What has he done to earn that name apart from throw a few water bottles and wear a bad suit? The combination of the bad suit and the ginger hair makes him look more like Krusty the Clown than notorious. I was born notorious. When I was 16 years old and in prison, fighting in the prison yard, he was doing his paper round, being tucked in at night by his mummy and daddy. I would have his belt and his name all in the same night. On the 11th of July 2019, just after 11 p.m, Paul Allen was outside his home in Woodford Green, East London, when multiple shots were fired from a self-loading 9mm Glock handgun. At least 6 bullets were fired at him from that Glock handgun, 2 of which found their mark, one of them hitting him square in the throat, leaving him paralyzed for life. Fast forward to March 2025, 3 men found themselves in the dock at the Old Bailey, their faces etched with the weight of their crimes. Daniel Kelly and brothers Louis and Stuart Ahern were convicted of conspiracy to murder after a grueling 5-week trial. Prosecutors painted a picture of Allen as a sophisticated career criminal, providing a backdrop to the shooting. The month that followed saw the Ahern brothers and Daniel Kelly receive their sentences. Louis Ahern, 36, was given a sentence of 33 years, while his older brother, Stuart, who was 46, was sentenced to 30 years. Kelly, their accomplice, aged 46, was hit with the harshest sentence of all, 36 years, plus an additional 5 years on license. Others implicated in the robbery have since been released, but Muray is still serving a 25-year sentence in a Moroccan prison for his leading role in the crime. Upon his release, Muray will be 57 years old. His supporters, however, hope for an early release. A petition for his pardon has already gained momentum, attracting thousands of signatures. If served in full, Murray's sentence won't see him released until 2035, after his 55th birthday. The prospect of a royal pardon from King Mohammed VI, who granted pardons to over 1,500 prisoners in March, offers a glimmer of hope. His daughter has directly appealed to His Royal Highness King Mohammed VI to grant a royal pardon after 18 years in prison. A statement which accompanied a petition read, "My name is Lily Lemrani Muray, and I am appealing directly to His Royal Highness King Mohammed VI to grant a royal pardon to my dad, which will allow him to come home after 18 years apart. I am also appealing to the UK public to please help bring my dad home by signing my petition calling on our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, to support our plea for a pardon from His Royal Highness King Mohammed VI. My father, Lee Muray, has been in prison in Morocco for 18 years. Myself and my brothers all miss our dad terribly. We are the invisible victims that are still suffering to this day. We've grown up with our dad on the other side of the ocean, some 2,000 miles away, only able to visit him once a year, sometimes not even that. I have not seen my father since 2017. I do not condone my father's actions that led to his imprisonment, but his imprisonment has changed him for the better. He is not the man he was 18 years ago, and I'm extremely proud of the person he is now. My dad is a good man that made bad choices and paid a huge price. Nothing can bring back the years I and my brothers lost as a result of his actions. But I hope you will hear my plea. Extend your mercy to my dad and grant him the chance to show the world he is a different person now and only focused on being a positive member of society. Lee's younger son, Lenny Muray, stated in a Morocco World News interview, "I was only 2 years old when my dad went to prison. I've spent my whole life without him. He's missed my childhood and I've missed having a father by my side. He made a mistake a very long time ago that he's taken responsibility for and changed for the better. He's still my dad. I love him and miss him every day. I just want the chance to know him properly and to have him be part of my life. I'm not asking for anything more than the chance to share time with the father I've missed for 19 years. He added, "My father has spent 19 years in a Moroccan prison, far longer than anyone else involved in the same case received in the UK. Lee's wife, Nicola Muray, said, "Lee is suffering serious health problems after 19 years in harsh conditions. He's never even held his granddaughter. Other prisoners with far more serious convictions have been pardoned. Why is Lee always left out? We are begging the UK government to help us bring him home before it's too late." The emotional appeal for a pardon is clear. A father missed, a man changed, a family hoping for a second chance. All eyes are now on King Mohammed VI and the UK public, as they decide the fate of a man who made bad choices but hopes for redemption. The cry for justice doesn't end with his family. Human rights groups such as Due Process International and Detained in Dubai have joined the chorus. They argue that the crime took place on UK soil and question the UK government's role in providing evidence to Moroccan prosecutors. They highlight human rights issues in Murray's case, including lack of legal counsel during the appeal process, which led to his sentence being increased from 10 to 25 years. Even more disconcerting is the assertion that the UK effectively outsourced Murray's prosecution. British authorities allegedly provided Moroccan prosecutors with police intelligence, case files, and evidence to secure a conviction abroad, a clear-cut case of proxy prosecution, according to these groups. If true, this sets a dangerous precedent, opening the door to future abuses when extradition fails, not just in Morocco, but globally. DPI and Detained in Dubai are supporting the Muray family in their calls to the UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy, Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood, and Special MENA Representative Hamish Falconer, urging them to issue a formal statement in support of clemency and to deliver a diplomatic note to Moroccan authorities without delay. Rada Sterling, who is assisting Lee Muray and his family through Due Process International, said, "Morocco has pardoned offenders of all kinds, yet Lee Muray remains imprisoned after 19 years. The UK effectively outsourced his prosecution, and now it must step up and support clemency. The UK was highly conflicted when it pushed a foreign country to prosecute its own citizen." Sterling would go on to say, "The country has a duty to its own citizens, and we are calling on the British government to support Lee's clemency request. He deserves a chance to rebuild his life." Murray's family are doing everything they can to fight for his release, and we are working with them to achieve that. There is no sense in Lee spending another 10 years in prison. This would never have happened in the UK, and conditions in Morocco are arguably worse. The UK should not have participated in a proxy prosecution where Lee had no real chance to defend himself or seek a more lenient sentence. I hope British leaders will consider the severity of the punishment and show strong leadership by supporting their citizens' pardon application. He has endured squalid, unhygienic conditions, been kept in solitary confinement 23 hours a day, and deprived of contact with his family, and he has never held his granddaughter. His family, his friends, and human rights groups are all begging for the same thing: for the UK government to intervene, to support a pardon request, and to bring him home before it's too late. The saga of Lee Muray shows the consequences of criminal activity and the relentless pursuit of justice by authorities. His sentencing highlights the harsh realities of crime and punishment. This video should also show you that criminal activity in the long run does not work. You destroy lives in many ways, not just others, but your own family and friends also. There is only two certain things that come from a life of crime, and that is the cemetery or jail. If you have made it to the end, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the true crime content. If you get time, I have other crime stories on my channel also. Thanks for watching. Until next time, like, comment and subscribe. Hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos. You could always help by sharing the video also. Stay safe.